Hello, I'm Hardman Canada, and I'm speaking with my telepathic powers because of my mustache. I will tell you my story of how I brought Albert Odyssey. In Canada, it's a rare Sega Saturn game that's very expensive. My coworker who knows that video games is one of my passion gave me the address of a retro video game store that he found by coincidence. After work, I went to the store and I saw Albert Odyssey locked behind a case for a value of $500, a game I've been looking for many years. In 1998, I think I saw this at a Blockbuster, a store that doesn't exist anymore. Back then, I was a kid with a limited amount of money, so I never got the chance to buy it. A few days later, I returned to the shop with the modern PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch game to exchange it against Albert Odyssey to buy the game with a reduced price. I was lucky that the owner of the business was there to sell me the game, and I was able to buy the game for over $300. Thanks to the game I sold like Paper Mario, Bayonetta 2, and Wonder Boy 4 that have a good in-store credit value. I had to sell many modern games to buy a retro video game. It's becoming the norm. It's a very funny situation. But I know what you are thinking. Who is crazy enough to sell Wonder Boy 4? To make a long story short, I pre-ordered the remake of Wonder Boy 4 and they gave me a second copy of the game by mistake, so I sold the other copy. The physical copy of this game is very limited because of my mustache. I have a feeling that it was destined to happen to help me to buy Albert Odyssey. Once I came back home, I tested the game. This is my first impression of the first 5 hours of gameplay. In general, the game is very good. It's a turn-based RPG with beautiful 2D graphic. The battle system is very easy to learn. The world map is in 3D with the characters that stays in 2D. The battle system reminds me of Lunar games from the Sega CD. The intro of the game is very interesting. During the intro, the narrator talks for 5 minutes. He explains the story of this world. That way the player can understand the context of the story. Talking about the story mode, the name of the main character is Spike. He goes to an adventure to save his big sister, Laia, who was transformed into a statue by a bad guy who wants to conquer the world.
From her brothers and transformed herself into the holy sword of Eldian. It was a final desperate act to counter the vicious and undeniable.
The enemy of the first dungeon killed me easily the first time because they gave a lot of damage, and at that point in the story you are alone, so I had to be very careful. But the game is not perfect. The loading time is long and save points are very far from each other, and sometimes there is a random battle each time you take 3 steps. But for my first impression, I give it a score of 8 out of 10. But I must remind you that this is only my first impression. This is not a review score. This is a first impression score. Once I beat the game, I can give it a review score and my opinion might change. This game is often on the list of the top 10 best Sega Saturn RPG, and I will find out once I beat the game if it deserves to be in the top 10. The owner of the store said good thing about the game. The reason why Albert Odyssey is so expensive is because a limited quantity of the game was produced for the North American market. Furthermore, Working Design, the company that made the game, doesn't exist anymore. Working Design are known to make beautiful cover art for their games, and that's also a factor of its high price. Over time, these retro games became even more expensive. These are some of my most valuable games that I possess. Many factors exist for a game to become high value, and I will give you a lot of examples. For example, number 1, there is the supply and demand factor. For example, a good game that was not popular at that time becomes a game that everyone wants to buy 10 years later. A lot of 80s and 90s kids are now adults that have enough money to buy games they couldn't buy when they were a kid. And that raised the demand of the game. Number 2, there are games that have a collector's edition or a limited edition with bonuses that will increase the value of the game. The limited edition of a game is the equivalent of a shiny Pokemon. Number 3, there are games that are expensive because of their historical value, making them good collectibles. Number 4, there are games that are released at the end of the life cycle of the console, and because of that, limited copies of those games were produced. Number 5, there are retro games that are expensive because of their reputation. For example, a game made by Sega, Konami, Capcom, Working Design, or Nintendo. Number 6, if a retro game is in good condition, for example a game that was never opened, that is factory sealed, it will increase the value of the game. And number 7, there are games that are more expensive in a console for various reasons, like Mega Man 8 and Sega Saturn, that have more content than the PlayStation version, or Zelda Twilight Princess on the GameCube, which cost 5 times more than the Wii version because the GameCube have a greater nostalgia value. In general, I'm the type of collector who only collect games I really want to play, like game I didn't have the chance to play when I was a kid. Some people ask me why I don't use emulators to save a lot of money. The reason is simple. It's because in general I feel very guilty using emulators, and I prefer playing game in the original factors. I know it's absurd to feel that way, but that's how I feel. But I have no problem playing fan games, like Pokemon fan games, Sonic fan games, Mega Man fan games, and Street of Rage fan games, because very often fan games are superior than the official games because fan games put things we want to see in those games. If I have a grandchildren one day, in my testament I will give instruction to give my video game collection to one of them. That way, once I start my life after death, they can sell my game to a collector or a retro video game store to receive money. A lot of money. But this will happen in the next century. If you are watching me for the first time, please subscribe to my channel. The rarest game in my collection is Magic Knight for the Sega Saturn. Tell me what is the rarest game or the most expensive game in your collection. Bye everyone, I love you all because of my mustache. See you next time!